All right, so I don't really know what this video is going to be. I guess it's kind of a story. I don't know. I've been thinking about this for 2 days now, and I was going to just ignore it because that's normally what I do with anything that makes me feel bad. But it's been sitting in my head and annoying me. I turned 30 in July 17th specifically. And I know that's not old. I know someone is going to be like, dude, 30 is young. And yeah, I get it. I know I'm not 75. I know my knees still work most of the time. I know I'm being dramatic. But I don't know, man. Something about being 29 and knowing 30 is right there, like actually right there, does something to you. Because for your whole 20s, you can kind of tell yourself you're still early. You're 23, you're confused, whatever. Everyone's confused. You're 25, okay, you're figuring it out. You're still young. You're 27, maybe it starts getting a little weird, but you still have some room. You can still say stuff like, I'm just trying different things, and people don't look at you too crazy. But 29 is strange. 29 feels like the last warning before people stop asking what you're going to do and start quietly assuming this is just what you did. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all, because if this is what I did, then I don't really have much to show for it. That sounds harsh, but that's where I'm at. I'm almost 30 and I have nothing. And I know how that sounds. I know people say stuff like, you have your health, or you still have time, or everybody moves at their own pace. And sure, fine, maybe. But when you're 29, unemployed, single, broke, living in a studio that feels more like a storage unit with plumbing than a home, and then you go watch one of your oldest friends get married, it gets hard to keep telling yourself you're just on your own timeline. That's what happened. I went to Daniel's wedding this weekend. Daniel is one of my oldest friends, or he used to be. I don't know how to say that without sounding dramatic, but that's the honest way to put it. We were close when we were younger. Like, actually close. 19, 20, 21. That kind of close where you don't really make plans. You just end up together because both of your lives are empty in the same direction. We used to sit in his car for hours after getting food, talking about movies and music and stupid business ideas and how everyone else was fake and how we were going to do something different. That was always the phrase. We were going to do something different. No details, obviously. Details ruin things, but we said it like it meant something. And then Daniel actually grew up. He got a good job. He met Sophie. He started showing up to things. He became reliable. He became the kind of guy people can build plans around. I became the kind of guy who says, sorry man, I've been busy, after ignoring a text for 11 days while doing absolutely nothing important. So when I got the wedding invitation, I felt weird about it. I was happy for him. I want to be clear about that. I was happy for him. Daniel is a good guy. Sophie seems like a good person. From everything I've seen, they make sense together. He deserves that. I'm not sitting here mad that my friend found love. That would be insane. But I had this other feeling under it, this ugly, embarrassing feeling, because some part of me assumed I would be more involved whenever Daniel got married. I don't know why. I had no right to assume that. Years ago, maybe. Back when we were actually close. Back when I was still a real person in his day-to-day life. But over time, I disappeared. I missed birthdays. I canceled plans. I left messages unanswered because I was ashamed of how little I had going on. I let the friendship become one of those things where you still care about the person, but you mostly care about them in theory. So I got invited as a guest, just a normal guest. And the worst part was that it made sense. That's the part that got me. I wasn't a groomsman. I wasn't involved in anything. I wasn't part of the rehearsal dinner. I wasn't there for the suit fittings. I didn't help plan the bachelor party. I didn't even know there was a bachelor party until I saw a picture of it later. And I know why. That's on me. But knowing why doesn't make it feel good. The week before the wedding, I almost didn't go. I had excuses ready. I always have excuses ready. That might be one of my few actual skills. I was going to say I wasn't feeling well, or that something came up, or that money was tight, which would have been true, but also convenient, because money is bad right now. I've been unemployed for a few months. I got let go from this operations job at a logistics company, which sounds more official than it felt. I was basically doing emails, spreadsheets, scheduling, calling people who didn't want to talk to me, and getting blamed for things by people whose names were on better email signatures. I complained about that job every day. Then I lost it. Now I miss having something to complain about. That's how pathetic unemployment gets after a while. You start feeling nostalgic for things that made you miserable, because at least they gave your day a shape. And I'm not saying I'm the most tragic person alive. I have a place to sleep. I have food. I'm aware there are people in worse situations. But I'm not okay. Financially, I mean. Mentally too, probably, but financially is the easier one to prove. I check my bank account like it's going to insult me. So going to a wedding is a whole operation. You need clothes, you need transportation, you need a gift, you need to look like you're not falling apart. You need to stand around people who ask normal questions and somehow answer them without making everyone uncomfortable. I don't own a real suit. I own a blazer from years ago that fits if I don't button it and don't breathe too ambitiously. I have dress shoes that make this faint squeaking sound when I walk, which is perfect if your goal is to enter a formal event sounding like a nervous floorboard. I went to buy a card the day before the wedding. I stood in the pharmacy card aisle for probably 15 minutes, just reading these messages about love and forever and building a life together. And I'm standing there doing math in my head. How much can I put in this card? What number looks respectable? What number can I survive? That's an insane thought to have in the greeting card section, but there I was. I ended up putting $60 in the card. And before anyone says anything, I know $60 isn't nothing. To me right now, $60 is very much something. That's groceries. That's a bill. That's the difference between checking my account and breathing normally for the rest of the day. But at a wedding, $60 feels small. It feels like you're handing someone evidence. Like, hey, congratulations on starting your life. Sorry mine is going badly. I wrote, so happy for you both, wishing you a lifetime of happiness. Very normal, very safe. I wanted to write something more personal to Daniel, something real. But I didn't know how to do that without making it about me. What was I supposed to write? Congrats, man. Sorry I vanished because I became ashamed of my own life. So I kept it normal. The day of the wedding, I got ready in my studio. And when I say studio, I mean studio. One room, bed, desk, kitchenette, all visible at the same time. You can stand in the doorway and see my entire life without turning your head, which is convenient if you want to feel judged by square footage. I had my blazer hanging on the back of a chair over a pile of laundry, because apparently that's how I prepare for formal events now. I put everything on and looked in the bathroom mirror. The lighting in there is insane. I don't know who designed it. It makes everyone look like they're about to confess to a crime. I looked okay. I didn't look good. I looked acceptable. The blazer was tight in the shoulders. My shirt collar was doing something weird. My hair looked like it was cooperating under protest. But I looked like someone who could attend a wedding without being removed by staff. So that was enough. I kept telling myself, just go. Be normal for a few hours. Smile. Say congratulations. Don't make it weird. I took the bus there because I couldn't justify a rideshare both ways. The venue was about 45 minutes away with one transfer. And there is something very humbling about sitting on public transportation in dress clothes. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the bus. Obviously. I take the bus all the time. But when you're wearing dress shoes and holding a wedding card in your inside jacket pocket, and some kid across from you is watching TikToks at full volume, you do start thinking about the choices that brought you there. The venue was nice. Not crazy. Not mansion nice. Not who are these people and why do they have generational wealth nice. Just nice. Warm lights. White flowers. A sign with their names on it. Little candles on the tables. The kind of place where someone had clearly made decisions in advance, and those decisions worked. That made it worse somehow. Because if it had been some ridiculous rich person wedding, I could have separated myself from it. I could have told myself, different world, different people, different rules. But this was normal nice. This was achievable nice. This was the kind of nice people get when they plan, save, answer emails, have families who help, keep relationships alive, and stay consistent long enough for life to gather around them. I got there early because I was anxious about being late. Then I immediately regretted that, because being early to a wedding alone is a weird kind of punishment. You just stand there. You check your phone even though nobody has texted you. You look at the seating chart too many times. You pretend to read the little welcome sign. You hold your body in a way that says, I definitely know where I'm supposed to be. I found my name eventually. Adam Vale, Table 8. I stared at it for a second longer than I needed to. Table 8. Not a bad table. I wasn't in the parking lot. I wasn't next to the speakers. I wasn't being punished. But I also wasn't with the inner circle. And again, that's fair. That's the theme of the whole story. Fair, but still embarrassing. I saw Daniel before the ceremony. He was surrounded by groomsmen, taking pictures and laughing. Marcus was one of them. That stung. I don't want to make Marcus sound like a bad guy. He isn't. He was always nice enough. We all used to hang out years ago. If he stayed close to Daniel and I didn't, then yeah, he should be up there. Still, seeing him in the matching suit, standing next to Daniel, made me feel like I was watching my own absence wearing formal wear. Daniel saw me and came over for a second. He hugged me and said, "Man, I'm really glad you came." And I said, "Of course, man, wouldn't miss it." Which is funny because I almost did. He looked happy, nervous too, obviously, but happy in a way that had weight to it. Then someone called him back for photos and he went. That was the first real moment where I felt the distance. Nobody did anything wrong. He was the groom. He had 1,000 things happening. Of course he couldn't stand there talking to me for 20 minutes. But it hit me that I used to be someone he would have pulled aside. Someone he would have had some inside joke with. Someone who would have known the other people around him. Now, I was someone he was glad showed up. There's a difference. The ceremony was nice. I'm not going to pretend I remember every word because, honestly, I was too busy having a private crisis in a folding chair. Sophie walked down the aisle. Daniel looked like he might cry. People laughed at the right parts. The officiant talked about love and patience and choosing each other every day. That phrase got stuck in my head. Choosing each other every day. I know that's wedding language. I know every officiant probably says some version of that. But I started thinking about it and it messed me up. Because I don't choose anything every day. I drift. I avoid. I postpone. I wait until something is on fire, then I act surprised that there's smoke. The closest thing I have to daily commitment is buying the same cheap coffee because I know exactly how much it costs. They said their vows. People cried. I looked down at my shoes because I didn't know what to do with my face. And I want to be clear, it was beautiful. I'm not making fun of it. It was actually beautiful. That was part of why it hurt. There's something about watching two people stand there in front of everyone and say, "Yeah, this is the life we're building," and then realizing you don't even know what you're building, or if you're building anything. After the ceremony, there was cocktail hour. I hate cocktail hour. Cocktail hour when you come alone is basically a test of how normal you can look while not knowing where to stand. I got one beer because I didn't want to have empty hands. That's a stupid reason to spend money, but there I was, paying $9 for emotional camouflage. I found Evan near the appetizers. Evan used to be awkward when we were younger. I don't mean that as an insult. He just was. He was quiet. He laughed a second late. He wore shirts that looked like they were chosen by a randomizer. Now he's married. Of course. He was there with his wife, and they were talking about maybe moving closer to her parents because they're thinking about kids soon. Thinking about kids soon. That's the kind of sentence that makes me feel like I'm 13 years old wearing a fake mustache. Evan asked what I was doing now. There it was, the question. I said, "I'm between things right now." Between things. That's the unemployed person's tuxedo. It sounds almost elegant, like I'm transitioning between meaningful chapters, like I have a strategy, like I'm not refreshing job boards at 1 in the morning, applying to positions where half the requirements sound made up. Evan was nice. He said, "Yeah, the market is rough right now." And I said, "Yeah, it's weird out there." Then I changed the subject, because the only thing worse than being unemployment is explaining unemployment to someone who has already escaped the part of life you're drowning in. The reception started after that. I sat at table 8. There was Evan and his wife, one of Sophie's cousins, a couple I didn't know, and a guy who worked with Daniel. Everyone was pleasant, completely normal people. Nobody was rude. Nobody did anything that would make this a cleaner story. That's almost annoying. It would be easier if someone insulted me. Then I could make this video about them. But no, everyone was nice. The cousin asked how I knew Daniel. I said, "We've been friends since we were basically teenagers." And right after I said it, I heard how strange it sounded. Because if we were that close, why was I sitting with people who had to ask who I was? Again, I know the answer. Still didn't feel great. Someone asked where I lived. I said, "I've got a studio over on Mercer." Then I added, "For now." I don't know why I said that. I always do that. For now. Just for now. Like there's some real life nearby and I'm about to move into it any second. I've been in that studio for 2 years. 2 years of for now. At some point, for now starts sounding like the truth with makeup on. Dinner was good, I think. I don't really remember the food. Chicken, probably. Wedding chicken. some potatoes, green beans placed on the plate like they had somewhere important to be. I was too busy trying to seem normal. People talked about jobs, houses, trips, baby plans, rent, leases, wedding planning, promotions, all that adult stuff. And I could participate a little. I'm not completely socially broken. I can ask questions, I can nod, I can do the thing where someone tells you about their work and you say, "That sounds intense," because that works for basically every job. But I didn't have much to offer. That was the thing I kept noticing. Everyone had details. Evan and his wife were thinking about moving. Sophie's cousin was starting a new role at some nonprofit. Daniel's coworker was talking about a trip to Portugal. Someone was dealing with a contractor. Someone else was trying to decide whether to renew a lease or buy. Details. Actual life details. I had vague answers. Between things. For now. We'll see. Trying to figure it out. That's what my life has become. A bunch of delay phrases stacked on top of each other. Then the speeches started. Daniel's brother gave one first. It was funny. He told stories about Daniel being stubborn and loyal and always showing up for people. Always showing up. That hit me, because I don't. I show up when I feel okay enough to be seen. That's a very different thing. Then Sophie's maid of honor gave a speech, and she said something about watching them build a life together. Build a life. I know people say that at weddings all the time. It's normal. You almost have to say it. But I got stuck on it. Build a life. Because what have I built? Seriously, I'm asking. I'm almost 30. What have I actually built? I don't have a job. I had jobs, random jobs, jobs I hated and then lost or left or outgrew without actually growing. I don't have savings. I have numbers I'm scared to look at. I don't have a relationship. I have an ex I still think about sometimes, and a few almosts that died because I got weird or distant or afraid to say what I wanted. I don't have a home. I rent one room where my bed is a few steps from my sink. I don't have routines. I don't have a body I'm proud of. I don't have a group of people who automatically assume I'll be there. I have potential, technically, and I hate that word now. Potential is what people compliment when there's no result. After the speeches, people danced. That was probably the hardest part of the night, the dancing. Because dancing at a wedding is where you see who belongs to who. Couples went up together. Friends pulled each other onto the floor. Older relatives danced badly with confidence, which is honestly one of the only pure things left in the world. Daniel and Sophie had their first dance, and everyone circled around with their phones out. I stood near the edge, holding my beer like it had given me instructions. I checked my phone. Nothing. I checked it again a few minutes later. Still nothing. At one point, I went to the bathroom, just to have somewhere to go. And I looked at myself in the mirror. Wedding bathroom lighting is also bad, by the way. Better than my studio bathroom, but still bad enough to start asking questions. I looked tired. That was the word. Tired. I used to think I looked young for my age. Maybe I did. But that night, I looked like a 29-year-old unemployed guy hoping a blazer could do some emotional heavy lifting. I stood there too long, so I washed my hands twice to make it seem like I had a reason. When I came back out, Daniel was dancing with Sophie. And I don't know why that specific moment got me, but it did. He looked happy in a way that didn't require an explanation. He wasn't performing. He wasn't showing off. He was just there, with his wife, surrounded by people who knew him and loved him and showed up for him. And I felt jealous. I hate admitting that. I felt jealous at my friend's wedding. And it wasn't because I wanted his exact life. I don't know the details of his life. Maybe he's stressed all the time. Maybe he has debt. Maybe marriage will be hard. I'm not stupid. I know people edit themselves in public. But he had something. He had a person, a direction, a room full of evidence that he mattered to people in the present tense. I had a return bus route saved on my phone. Toward the end of the night, Daniel came over again. He was a little drunk by then. Happy drunk. He hugged me and said, "Seriously, man, I'm really glad you were here." I said, "Me too, man. I'm happy for you." And I meant it. Then he said, "Don't be a stranger, okay?" That one hurt. I laughed because that's what I do when I don't know how to answer honestly. I said, "Yeah, I'll try." But in my head, I was like, he's right. I am a stranger now. That's what people say when you've become one. I wanted to say something real. I wanted to say, I'm sorry I disappeared. I'm sorry I let shame turn me into a bad friend. I'm sorry I've been acting busy when really I just didn't want anyone to see how little I had going on. But you don't say that at a wedding. You say, yeah, I'll try. So that's what I said. I left a little before the end because I had to catch the bus, which is a sentence that sounds like it was designed specifically to humble me. Outside, I stood near the road in dress shoes that were starting to hurt. I opened the transit app. 22 minutes, of course. While I was waiting, people came out of the venue in little groups, laughing, hugging, figuring out rides, deciding who was going where after. A few people got into cars. A couple walked past me arguing quietly about whether they were too drunk to go to an after-party. I just stood there. The bus came eventually. I sat near the back. I opened Instagram, which was a mistake. Wedding stories were already up. Daniel and Sophie kissing. Daniel dancing with his mom. The first dance. The groomsmen. The cake. People laughing in little clips with music over them. Then I saw myself in the background of one video. Just for a second. Sitting at the table, looking down at my phone. That felt worse than any mirror. Because that's probably how I looked most of the night. A guy at a celebration, checking a phone nobody was using to reach him. I got back to my studio a little after midnight. The hallway smelled like old carpet and someone's food. I unlocked the door, and there it was. My whole life in one room. Bed, sink, desk, laundry, trash bag I should have taken out before I left. Laptop half open. Cheap microphone I bought during one of my I'm finally going to do something phases. A notebook on the floor. Dishes in the sink. One fork, one bowl, one mug. You know how some places feel like a person lives there? Mine feels like someone is hiding there. I stood in the doorway for a second with my blazer still on. The silence was immediate. At weddings, silence doesn't exist. There's music, talking, glasses, footsteps, laughter, something. Then you come home alone and the silence feels like it was waiting for you. I sat on the bed without turning the main light on. I opened my banking app. I don't know why. Punishment, maybe. I looked at the number for about 5 seconds and closed it. Then I just sat there. That was when the title of this video became real in my head. I'm almost 30, and I have nothing. And I know I keep saying that, I know, but I mean it in a specific way. I don't mean I have literally 0 objects. I'm surrounded by objects. Most of them are cheap or dirty or connected to things I never finished, but they exist. I mean, I have nothing built, nothing stable, nothing I can point to without explaining around it. No job, no partner, no savings, no home, no plan, no answer that doesn't sound like I'm asking for more time. And I know there are reasons. The economy is bad, jobs are weird, rent is insane, dating is weird, mental health can quietly wreck your life while you still look functional enough for nobody to intervene. I know all of that. I'm not trying to turn this into some speech about how everyone just needs to work harder and stop complaining. That kind of thing annoys me too. But I know myself, and I know how many times I avoided things because trying would make failure official. I know how many jobs I didn't apply for because I was scared I wasn't qualified. I know how many texts I didn't answer because I didn't want to explain myself. I know how many times I told myself I'd start tomorrow, then treated tomorrow like some magical place where I'd wake up as a different person. Tomorrow has been carrying my whole life for years, and it's tired. The next morning, my mom called, which was perfect timing because mothers have some kind of radar for when you're emotionally unstable and trying to eat cereal out of a mug. She asked how the wedding was. I said, it was nice. She asked if Daniel looked happy. I said, yeah, he did. Then she asked, did you see a lot of your old friends? I said, some. Then, of course, she asked, did anyone ask what you're doing for work? And I said, a little. She got quiet for a second. Very small pause. I hate those pauses. Then she said, well, something will come along. Something will come along. People say that when they love you and have no idea what else to say. I said, yeah. Then she asked if I had thought about what I wanted to do for my birthday in July. I said, not really. She said, 30 is a big one. You should do something. I almost laughed. The idea of celebrating 30 feels insane to me right now. What am I celebrating? Congratulations, Adam. You made it to 30 with a studio, no job, and a LinkedIn profile that looks like it needs medical attention. But I didn't say that. I said, yeah, maybe. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchenette. I don't call it a kitchen because that feels disrespectful to kitchens. There were dishes in the sink from before the wedding. One plate, one pan, some cups, nothing crazy, just enough to make the whole place feel worse. And I got this tired feeling. Not motivated, tired. Motivation feels like you're about to become someone. This felt like I was sick of being myself. So I started washing the dishes. I know, very dramatic. Man watches friend get married, returns home, discovers dish soap. But that's what happened. I washed the plate, then the pan, then the cups. I wiped the counter. I took the trash out. Nothing changed. Obviously, I was still unemployed, still broke, still single, still in the same studio, still turning 30 in July. But for once, I couldn't stand one more piece of evidence. While I was washing everything, I kept thinking about Daniel dancing with Sophie. And the thing that bothered me was how ordinary it all was. He didn't do anything impossible. He didn't become famous. He didn't become some millionaire genius. He didn't escape into a perfect life. He became reliable enough for life to attach to him. People could count on him. Sophie could build with him. His friends could stand beside him. His family could make speeches about him showing up. And I'm standing there washing a pan in a room where I sleep 5 feet away from where I make instant coffee, realizing I have spent years trying to protect myself from embarrassment and somehow became more embarrassed than if I had just tried. That's the stupid thing. Avoiding failure still creates a life. It creates this one. A life where nothing is technically destroyed, but nothing is really happening either. A life of for now. Studio for now. Unemployed for now. Single for now. Broke for now. Figuring it out for now. Except for now keeps renewing itself, like a subscription you forgot to cancel. Daniel texted me later that day. He said, "Thank you again for coming. It meant a lot." I stared at it for a while. My first instinct was to write something easy. "Of course, man, great wedding." That would have been fine. But I kept thinking about him saying, "Don't be a stranger." So I wrote, "Of course, I'm really happy for you. And I know I've been distant. That's on me. I'm glad I was there." I almost deleted the middle part. It felt too sincere. I hate sincere. Sincere makes me feel like I left my front door open. But I sent it. He replied a few minutes later. "Appreciate you saying that. Let's get coffee soon." And I know that's small. I'm not trying to turn one text into a redemption arc. I'm still unemployed. I still live in the same studio. I still don't know what I'm doing. I still have to check my bank account. I still have to apply to jobs. I still have to become the kind of person who doesn't need a wedding to scare him into basic honesty. But I sent the text. Then I opened my laptop. I made a document called Things I Have Been Avoiding. The list got ugly pretty fast. Job applications, resume, unemployment paperwork, bank account, credit card, doctor, laundry, mom, Daniel, Maya. Maya is my ex. I didn't mean to write her name, but there it was. And no, I'm not texting her. I know how that goes. I'm not going to show up in someone's messages because I had an emotional weekend and need a woman I disappointed to confirm I'm growing. But I wrote her name because she belongs on the list. She used to say I talked about the future like it was guaranteed. At the time, I thought she was being harsh. Now I think she was just early. I did talk like that. I talked like my real life was waiting for me somewhere, and this was all temporary. But I'm starting to think your real life is the one you keep waking up inside. Even if you don't respect it. Even if it embarrasses you. Even if you keep telling people it's temporary. So yeah, that's where I am. I went to my friend's wedding. I sat at table 8. I said I was between things. I said my studio was for now. I watched him dance with his wife. I took the bus home. I stood in one room with my whole life visible from the doorway. And I realized I'm almost 30, and I have nothing. That's the part I can't dress up anymore. I don't have the things I thought I'd have. I don't even have the person I thought I'd be. And I know I could end this with some hopeful thing, like maybe this is the beginning. Maybe it is. I don't know. I don't trust myself enough to make that sound convincing. But I know I'm tired of vague answers. I'm tired of for now. I'm tired of acting like wanting a normal life is beneath me because I'm scared I can't get one. I'm tired of using potential as a hiding place. I'm tired of being the guy people are glad showed up because they weren't sure he would. So I washed the dishes. I answered Daniel. I wrote the list. And then I applied to one job. One. That's all. Not 10. No huge transformation. No new personality. One job. And honestly, I probably won't get it. The market is awful, and my resume looks like it was assembled during a power outage. But I applied, and that's more than I did the day before. So I don't know. Maybe 30 is going to be bad. Maybe it's going to be embarrassing. Maybe I'm going to turn 30 in the same studio with the same problems, trying to convince myself July 17th is just another day. But I think the thing that scares me now is that another day is exactly how this happened. Just another day. Just another week. Just another month. Just another year where I was going to start soon. Then suddenly your friend is married, your ex is gone, your mom sounds worried, your bank account looks personal, and your whole life fits in one room. I don't want to be dramatic, but I don't know how else to say it. I'm almost 30. I have nothing. And for the first time in a long time, I don't think I can make that sound interesting enough to hide behind.